And we'll start. All right, good afternoon. Professor Collins here. We're starting out on Module 5, so we've kind of made halfway mark in the term. And at this point, I'd like to say thank you for the great work that you've done this term, with the milestones and the discussion boards. I've enjoyed the back and forth that we've had. And, of course, the oral boards. This is what you guys are doing very, very well with, and that you're going to be doing again this assignment for Module 5. And what we're looking at in the readings, we go into Chapter 5 about the police, which is kind of recapping a lot of what we've been doing with the research and the case studies of both that have been assigned through course learning resources and ones that you've brought into yourself, as we did in our last discussion. And in the readings, we kind of look over two things of the Constitution and how it relates to policing. And I think of when I first started in classroom teaching. I teach criminal investigation at St. Francis College in Brooklyn. And you thought you'd just go in and kind of do the nuts and bolts of criminal investigation. But the more I got into it, the more I should have named it criminal investigation and the Fourth Amendment. And actually, we go over very closely the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments. Search and seizure, self-incrimination, and the due process that everyone's entitled to. And it's kind of very important in the basics of everything that we do in policing, and everything we should do in policing should be within the limits granted to us by the Constitution and Supreme Court decisions. And as I said, we go over a number of Supreme Court decisions in my classroom teaching and in this readings. And then I got to go into police tactics and how they relate ethically and constitutionally. And a big part of it is now the emphasis on counterterrorism investigation, surveillance, and how that is something new to policing after the horrific day of September 11th, 2001, and how that relates. And they relate how it's done constitutionally and what we should do ethically. As the same with stop, question, and frisk, very unique and useful investigative tool and police tool that we use, but like everything else, it has to be used properly and has to be used ethically. And I look at that as with arrests and other searches that we do in the course of our duties, in the course of policing, and how that relates both constitutionally and ethically in the reading. And I kind of go into police corruption and defining police corruption to like three phases. One is nonfeasance, and it's like a failure to perform a legal act. And then there's misfeasance, a failure to perform a legal act in the right way, in a proper manner, in how you conduct yourself. And the last is malfeasance, which is committing an illegal act in the course of one's duties. And this is kind of a lot of things that we've looked at already in the case studies in the SCORE police officers in Herrera, and in some of the case studies that you've given me in last week's discussion board. And for this chapter will be looked at in a discussion where we once again have to go out and research a unethical conduct by a criminal justice professional and see if their acts were of nonfeasance, misfeasance, or malfeasance. And we will discuss that in our discussion board, and I will join in also. As I said, these are situations where I'll either pick an event that occurred during my career or a current situation that needs to be talked about. I think with this, I've already kind of looked at something that I'll be discussing in the discussion board, and I'd like your input on it. As I said, I learn from you, you learn from me, we all learn together. So I really want that back and forth with the discussion boards, especially with what I've put in there. We also look into, in the readings, is an article about former New York City police officer Frank Serpico, who was instrumental in uncovering systematic corruption within the police department in the late 60s, early 70s, the Knapp Commission, which had a major effect on how the NYPD operates. And if you looked at my discussion board of a case that I was witness to in the early 80s, and how the department reacted in the way with dealing with corrupt cops and reporting corruption. And a lot of that came out of what Frank Serpico did in the Knapp Commission, in the early 70s. And it's just a kind of an article kind of talking about him and his feelings towards the police department and his life after the police department. Now you're going to see a video on YouTube from Tim Cook on ethical leadership. Tim Cook is of Apple products, and he kind of goes into what he thinks ethical leadership is, ethical business practices are, and kind of combining his own personal code of ethics and morals in with his business savvy. And finally, once again, you'll do another discussion board, and you're kind of asked to, how does your moral and ethical responsibilities to the public that you serve and to your peers affect your ethical decision making? And it's kind of, doing the right thing when no one is looking, and making sure that the right thing is done, both for the public you serve and the people you work with and the organization that you're a part of, which I think is very important. And as we have looked at, as I said, in the past case studies, and what could go wrong and what should go right. And that's kind of how we're going to look at it. And that's what we're looking for. As I said, your work has been excellent. Please keep it up. Those of you who are falling behind, please catch up. I mean, as I said, it's very tough this time of year with vacations, summer. Who really wants to sit down at the computer and read and write things and record things for oral boards. But as I said, you're really doing good work, and I want to see everybody succeed in it. So if you're running behind, please try to catch up. And remember, if there's anything that I can do to be of assistance, any situation or problem that you have that I can try to seek a resolution to, please reach out to me anytime of the day or night. Email, telephone, my private email I think I put on my on the website. Anything you need, I'm here for you. As I said, keep up the good work, and looking forward to working with you again this week with the discussion boards and hearing your oral boards. And as I said, you're doing a great job.